The Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigations Council presents Epic Voyages. Come join us as we enter and experience the great mysteries of the world with tonight's host,
Laurel Tague. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Epic Voyagers on InceptionRadio.com. My name is Laurel Tague, and I'm talking to you tonight, not from New York State, where I live now, but down from my hometown in Dallas, Texas. We've got a really special guest tonight who will be talking about a topic that, if you're like me, up until a few months ago, I knew nothing about, and I am so excited about the topic, and I think you will be too. We're talking to Dr. Sam Osmanagich. Sam, do you mind if I call you Dr. Sam instead of trying to pronounce your last name?
That'll be much easier.
Okay, Dr. Sam is the author of 12 books so far, I'm sure there's going to be more, about ancient civilizations, and he's also narrated a 12-episode documentary for Bosnian State TV that's based on one of his books in 2005, The Civilizations Before the Official History. Well, what is interesting, his latest book, written in it's published in 2012, the title is Pyramids Around the World and the Lost Pyramids of Bosnia. If you didn't know that there were pyramids in Bosnia, you are really going to learn something tonight, and I highly recommend this book. He discovered, I don't know if that's the right term, but he discovered these pyramids in Bosnia near a town of Visoko. Is that the way you say it, Sam?
Yes.
Visoko, somewhere around 2005, and the following year he founded a nonprofit organization to support the excavation called the Archaeological Park Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation. They have been excavating ever since, and I think that you have found somewhere around 5 pyramids to date. We're going to get into the particulars of it. Some of the most exciting facts about this is that some of the radiocarbon dating goes all the way back to 30,000 years ago, associated with the tunnels, I believe, of one of these areas. He has traveled literally all over the world, exploring and studying firsthand pyramids, step pyramids, or ziggurats. He has a PhD in Mayan studies. He's a foreign member of the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences of Moscow. He's also a member of the Archaeological Society of Alexandria, and he is a professor at American University in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And you folks just need to get yourself a cold drink and settle in because you're really going to find this interesting tonight. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me here.
Yesterday, here in the Dallas Fort Worth, put on a special 2.5, 3-hour meeting where Sam presented a slideshow that contained all of his technical data and the most fabulous pictures, which, by the way, if you do get his book about these pyramids, it has beautiful full-color photographs in it. I think you'll all be very impressed with that. And I wanted to tell you, Sam, I was very impressed with in your book.
Thank you.
Well, what I would like to know is what brought you to Visoko in the first place to see these geographic features, Sam?
You see, for the last 25 years, I have been investigating the pyramids and the ancient civilizations and concluded that instead of what they've been telling us, that the pyramids were built only in Egypt and Mexico, that it was wrong. The pyramids were built on all 6 continents. It's very exciting phenomena. I mean, 250 pyramids in central Chinese province of Shanxi, 300 pyramids in Peru, 10,000 of them in Central America, pyramids on Canary Islands, on the island of Mauritius in the middle of the Indian Ocean. They are simply everywhere. Now, 7 years ago, I first came to the central Bosnian town of Visoko. And the reason was something different, not pyramids. They invited me to come and visit local museum. But when I came to this town, above the town was a hill towering this town of Visoko, a huge. But then you could see irregularity.
I'm going to put up in the chat room a couple of websites for you and the phone number for the chat room, which you'll be able to send some questions in, and we'll work them in as he talks. And I think in about another 45 minutes, we'll get into a full-blown question and answer period. You can find out about Sam's books and some at Osmanagich.com. And then the pyramids himself and his foundation, they have their own website, BosnianPyramidOfTheSun.com. So any of you that are online and want to Sam talk, the pictures are just stunning. Okay, Sam, welcome back.
All right. So I came to the central Bosnian town of Visoko. I saw the hill in the perfect shape of the pyramid with 4 triangular sides that perfectly matched the cardinal points. And even though most of the people think of pyramids based on what they could see in Giza Plateau in Egypt, the pyramids completely uncovered in the desert, stone blocks on top of each other, they don't realize that most of the pyramids on the planet are actually covered by soil and vegetation. 250 of them in China, thousands of them in the forests and jungles in Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and we had the same case in Bosnia. But, Mother Nature does not make a perfect hills with 4 sides, triangular sides, and those sides perfectly match the cardinal points. So I immediately knew that this was an artificial structure. Well, like you said, in 2006, I established the non-profit foundation, and we started this project. And it was not just the archaeological project. Our approach was it has to be interdisciplinary, scientific project. So we have involved so many scientific disciplines, conservative scientists, mainstream scientists, alternative scientists, because we wanted to know the full truth. And for the first time, we realized that in order to understand the pyramids, you need to view them through 3 different realms: physical, energy, and spiritual. And I would say at this moment, this has become the most active archaeological site in the world, with hundreds of volunteers who come to Visoko every year, with dozens of archaeologists, geologists, geophysicists, physicists, and other experts. And we have brought the magic of archaeology back to the European soil.
What seems really unusual to me, I have read somewhat, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I have read about pyramids being all over the world. Stunned to find out that not only are these in Bosnia, but they are, first, we're going to get in a minute to the issue of the controversy that this has brought about in the archaeological community, but isn't it true that one of them, and I think it might be the Pyramid of the Sun, is actually 30% larger than the largest pyramid that's in Giza in Egypt?
That is correct. When we come to the size of the pyramids, for example, the largest Chinese pyramid is 65 meters or approximately 200 feet in height. The famous Pyramid of the Sun in the city of Teotihuacan in Mexico is 74 meters or approximately 225 feet in height. The highest Mayan pyramid is the one in El Mirador in northern Guatemalan province of Petén, 330 feet. Now, so far we thought that the biggest one is the Great Pyramid of Egypt, with its height of 450 feet. But then, once we measured the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, we concluded that its height is almost 700 feet. So it is 1/3 higher than the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and when it comes to volume, it is 3 times bigger than the Great Pyramid of Egypt. So
that's amazing.
What we have in Bosnia, number one, these are the first pyramids in Europe. Number two, they are the biggest, the largest on the planet. Number three, when you start removing the soil from the pyramid, which reaches up to 5 feet, we are finding a huge rectangular blocks. We've analyzed them in 6 different scientific institutes, and the conclusion, that was a man-made concrete of exceptional qualities, much better than what we have in 21st century. Number 4, the orientation of the pyramids. Traveling all around the world and researching this phenomena, I could see that all Chinese pyramids are oriented towards the cosmic north. The oldest and biggest Egyptian pyramids also to the north. Most Peruvian and all Cahokia pyramids here in the States, they are oriented to the north. We thought that the best orientation is of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, with the error of 0 degrees and 2 minutes. Well, according to the Bosnian Institute for Geodesy, once they applied the scientific instrumentation, they concluded that the error of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun from the true north is 0 degrees, 0 minutes, and 12 seconds. This is the most precise orientation on the planet. And number 5, which is maybe the most exciting fact, in the binding material of those blocks, we are finding organic material which can be dated. And according to the analysis of the Polish Silesian Institute for Technology, the organic material goes back 12,350 years before present. It means, obviously, that the Bosnian pyramids are also the oldest pyramids on the planet, and those 5 elements forever change our view of the ancient history.
Well, it would be pretty difficult for me to hone in on one of these points that I think is the most stunning one. I did have it on my list to ask you to talk about the basically the ancient concrete that you have found there, because you're working with someone who's a geopolymer expert, and this apparently, the fact that these are not monolithic quarried slabs of stone that were used like building bricks, this is actually poured, probably in place, basically what we know today as aggregate or concrete. Is that right?
Yes, you are right. Namely, when we view the ancient civilizations, we always undermine their capabilities. We don't realize that in some aspects, especially some construction techniques, but also the knowledge of astronomy, math, geometry, they were very well ahead of us. Now, in the case of Egyptian pyramids, it seems that Professor Joseph Davidovich of France, starting the end of 1970s, proved that some of the blocks used on the Cheops, Khafre, or Mycenaean pyramids were actually poured at the site. They would use the limestone from the quarries, get it in the liquid state, and then they would add additives to enhance the properties of those blocks. Now, in Bosnia, we have something similar. Of course, the local material was used instead of the limestone. What they were using was the material they get when they were building the underground tunnels. Those tunnels are built in the material called conglomerate. Conglomerate is a natural accumulation, natural deposits that consist of stones and rocks and pebbles and sand. So this is excellent construction material. All they needed was the binder. And for the binder...
Uh-oh, we lost Sam again, but I know where he was going because I've read the book and I enjoyed his show yesterday. The binder was actually clay. And not only was the binder clay, but it involved superheating the mixture to cause it to be, I can't remember the numbers. When he comes back on, we'll ask him to tell us. They have actually measured, say, common current day concrete and aggregate, and there's a way they can describe the density of it and the strength. The aggregate that he's talking about that he has found so far in the Bosnian pyramids is like, I believe, something like 2 or 3 times more dense and has more strength than even that. So we're saying that at least 12 to 13,000 years ago, someone in Bosnia knew how to make conglomerate concrete that was way better than what we are using today all around the world with all of our engineering skills. He was talking about the tunnels underneath the complex, and I'm going to put up here on the chat box again the website, particularly the BosnianPyramidOfTheSun.com, where you are going to find pictures of these pyramids. And when you look at it, don't expect it, because these are completely covered with vegetation that's been covering the pyramids for thousands of years. Sam, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. And to conclude the story about the concrete, according to the 6 different scientific institutes for materials from Bosnia, France, and Italy, the samples of the, from the rectangular blocks from the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun are the man-made concrete. Now, our modern concretes, when it comes to the quality and the hardness, they are in the range from 10 to 60 megapascals. The higher the hardness, of course, the better the quality. In the case of Bosnian pyramids, the hardness is in the range from 73 megapascals to 134. So, really, never in a human history such a hard quality concrete was made like the one that covers the largest pyramid on the planet. So this is really remarkable, One asks, himself or herself, where are those formulas? Where is that knowledge that they used long time ago to build those pyramids?
That's amazing. And another question about that, you did mention 12,500 years ago. Yes. Some of the dating has shown this, but in your book, you also mentioned that some of the material that you found in the tunnels has been radiocarbon dated back to 30,000 years ago. Isn't that correct?
Well, that's correct. What we have there, this is a huge construction complex that consists of at least 5 pyramidal structures, which we name the Bosnian Pyramids of the Sun, Moon, Dragon, Earth, and Love, and a huge underground network of tunnels, intersections, chambers, artificial water accumulation. In those tunnels, we've been discovering megalithic blocks. They go up to 18,000 pounds in mass. We've analyzed that material in the Institute for Atomic Physics, and very sophisticated methods were applied. The diffraction Röntgen analysis and the phased analysis. They concluded it was ceramic. Again, man-made blocks. Now, those blocks, we are uncovering them from the conglomerate. And in the conglomerate, we are finding pieces of wood. And then we did radiocarbon dating, several pieces, and they took us back 32 to 34,000 years, according to the labs from Germany and Poland. Meaning that somebody was bringing or making those huge ceramic blocks over 30,000 years ago. So, in order to get the final conclusion, we would need to do many more radiocarbon datings and many more test analysis. But at this point, it is so obvious that those pyramids, those structures in central Bosnia, do not belong to the last cycle of humanity, which started approximately 8,000 years ago with the Sumer, Babylon, Akkad, Assyria, ancient Egypt, ancient India, and so on. And now, this is the time to realize that we have to change the history books. Instead, what they've been telling us, that we went all the way from the primitive caveman to the 21st century and the mostly developed and technologically superior, intelligent man. Well, the history of humans is different. We had cycle after cycle after cycle, and they were interrupted by huge global catastrophes. And the Bosnian pyramids do belong to the previous cycle of humanity, not to the last one. And guess what? Yes.
I was going to say, related to what you're saying about the dating back to 35,000 years ago, or 30,000 years ago, hasn't there been some other evidence in that area around the Balkans recently? I think it's genetic evidence that supports that same dating of a culture living there.
Yes, you are right. Thanks to the new science called anthropological genetics, we finally are getting some hard scientific data about the origin, age, and migrations of different groups of different nations in Europe. Now we know for the fact that the oldest people in Europe are the Basques in Spain and southern France, and they go back approximately 55,000 years. But the second oldest cultural oasis in Europe is the center of the Balkan, and Bosnia is exactly in the middle of the Balkan Peninsula. It's about 38,000 years old. And the third oldest is the Ukraine, around the Black Sea, approximately 25,000 years before present. So it seems that we are getting more scientific information saying that the history of very advanced societies are much, much older than previously thought. And when you see the sensational archaeological discoveries in the last 15 years from Yonaguni, Japan, and the bottom of the Pacific floor, when 13 underwater cities were discovered at the depth of 250 feet, telling us that they are much older than the end of the last ice age, which is at least 12,000 years. When we see huge stone blocks that weigh up to 1,250 tons, like those in eastern Lebanon, Baalbek, when we see the new datings of Machu Picchu, or when we know the real story about the oldest Egyptian pyramids or oldest pyramids on Mexican soil, then we realize that they all belong to the era 12,000 plus years. So the history books will have to be rewritten.
We are definitely going to get to a discussion about the history books before we leave this. Before we go on, let me remind everybody, you're listening to Epic Voyages on InceptionRadioNetwork.com, and you will be able to call into the show and ask questions in a little bit after the break. Right now, if you want to send questions to the chat room there at the website, InceptionRadioNetwork.com. We have one right now, Sam, and when you dropped off the last time, I think I was telling folks that I believe I remember you said that not only is the binder made of clay, and then you've got these stones that form the rest of the concrete, but you said something about heating. Didn't you say that they heated it, and that's part of what was responsible for the incredible strength? Do you know anything about what kind of energy that they think they used to it, and the temperatures needed to fire that mix?
Not at this moment, but according to the explanation from the Institute for Materials, they would heat the clay up to 400 degrees. And at that temperature, clay is getting binding properties. That's what they knew in ancient Rome 2,000 years ago.
Those of you who have never been to Texas, Sam is in Houston. I am just north of Dallas. And there is a storm raging right now, I'm hoping that I don't drop off also, but Sam is very persistent, I can assure you of that. We're going to get into the controversy around his discovery. And actually, what is making the controversy worse is that some maverick engineers, chemical engineers, archaeologists, geophysical scientists of various kinds are coming up with data to support the fact that these are, there's at least 3 of them. They're still working on uncovering all of them, and it's a very rough, difficult job. But it appears to me that the entire archaeological community is just overreacting to the fact that, yes, it looks like we're going to have to rewrite history books, and apparently none of them want to do that. Is that right, Sam?
You're right. Now, what we have, like I mentioned, those 5 elements, the first pyramids, the oldest pyramid, the best quality concrete, the most precise orientation, these are all hard scientific facts. I mean, when you see perfect geometry of the pyramid and when you see artificial material, you find inner passageways inside the pyramid, you find underground tunnels. Obviously, that's a huge construction complex. And nobody, literally nobody, ever mentioned such a huge, the biggest pyramidal complex on the planet. So what do? Instead of changing the history books, the PhDs, which are no good, the professorships, no bueno, the way they've been teaching our kids, obviously it was wrong, from little Sarajevo to Zagreb to Paris to London to Boston to New Orleans. It was much easier for them to try to stop the project, to stop this little foundation and this guy who were in control of such a huge, history-changing archaeological project. And unlike them, we said there is no place for the elite science here. We will not have a selection of information. The project will be open for everyone. And not only that, we have invited